We are starting with a phone call from Ray, who is in Toronto. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I have a question on Kinder Morgan Inc., the big American pipeline company. Seems to have not been doing as well as the others, certainly in Canada. Yet it seems to have solid earnings and dividends appears to be solid. I wonder if your guest has any comments about it. Thank you very much.
Sure. Ray, I think that ultimately one of the big reasons investors, including us at Barometer, have been focused on energy infrastructure is because of this boom in production that's going on in North America. And of course, you got to move all this stuff around. And so many of the infrastructure companies have had a great opportunity to invest in new infrastructure and get great returns on the capital that they're investing. So ultimately, you want to find those that are in the right areas and those that are seeing big growth in their capacity. Kinder Morgan, if you look forward, is seeing a slowing in their revenues and not quite as attractive profile as some of the other companies. So I would prefer to look at a company like Williams Corporation, which is also pipelines, midstream energy infrastructure.
What's the ticker there?
WMB. Williams raised a lot of equity in 2011 and 12 to build out new projects, which come into production and fruition in 2013, 14, and 15. So they're going to have close to 20% dividend growth per year for the next 5 years. They're going to get like 25, 26% earnings growth, and you're getting a very similar dividend to what you're getting in the Kinder Morgan. So, ultimately, returns come in two ways. One is the dividend that you get, but also you're looking for some capital growth or multiple expansion. And I think that maybe Williams gives you a better opportunity. I like the space. We have very significant exposure, especially in Canada through Pembina and Keyera and so on. But I would prefer a Williams to a Kinder Morgan.
Do you hold Williams?
We own a small amount,
okay,
but it's a position that we would build on.
For the average Canadian investor, when you have the Pembinas and the inner pipes available, do you really need a U.S. pipeline?
You don't necessarily, but that being said, Williams is a really dominant company, so it's one that certainly should be looked at.
Okay, there's an idea for you, Ray. Thanks for that. Here's an email from Masudo on MassTech MTZ in New York. He says, a couple of years ago, it was a top pick of yours. Do you still hold it? Is it a buy or a sell? Good memory for this gentleman. Do you still hold this one?
He's got a great memory. And it was a great position for us. It's one that we came out of ultimately. I wish we still owned it. It had a bit of a shakeout through 2011. And ultimately, I guess we didn't ever go back. But this is a company that builds infrastructure for telecom. They manage build out of towers and gear. They also do fiber to the home, and of course, there's a lot of money being spent in this area to build bandwidth. This is a company, when I looked at it recently, is one that I would consider buying again.
Oh, really?
So I think that if you look at the capital investment that's going to continue to take place in the telecom companies, they also have found their way into oil and gas service, and of course, there's a boom going on there. So they're in a couple of great spaces. Oil and gas now is about 40% of their business, and stock's trading pretty close to a high. It's in the right group. I could buy the stock here.
Really? So it's on your watch list then?
Yes, it is.
Alex is in Thunder Bay next up. Hi, Alex.
Thanks for taking my call, Mark.
You're welcome.
Mr. Burrows, the last time you were on, you recommended Micron Tech, I believe. I picked up a small amount of it, and I've been on quite a wild ride. It's been trading at around the same level it is today. I think you know what I mean. Anyway, are you still in it? Did you get stopped out?
Sure.
How do you do your stop-out kind of procedure? And did you happen to hear about their earnings today? And thank you very much. I'll sit back and listen.
Okay. So, Alex, I've not seen the earnings, although I know they are due. I thought it was tomorrow.
I think it is tomorrow.
Yeah.
Just seeing a preview here.
So the reason we bought Micron is this was a fragmented industry that's been consolidated down to 3 players. Historically, pricing for DRAM was quite volatile. It's become a lot less volatile. And there's a lot of pricing discipline now in the market. This is a semiconductor stock. It does move around. I think it pulled back from about 25 maybe to 23, which I don't see that as a huge move. Certainly, if you looked at what happened in the market over the last month, a lot of the high multiple stocks or high relative strength stocks pulled back a little. I think this has held in remarkably well. It's trading within a whisper of the high. We have not been stopped out of the stock, and I think that there's a very good future here. There's very strong growing demand for memory. The quarter is a risk. They could, at any given time, you could see a little weakness in the quarterly numbers. But we think that the thesis going forward is that if there's more pricing discipline and less big new supply, then you could get a higher multiple, earnings multiple paid for the shares. And in a world where the economy is getting a little better, semiconductors tend to lead, and semiconductors are one of the strongest groups in the market. So wins on the sector level and at the company level.
There was an analyst the other day who actually was going against consensus on the street, who said they're going to outperform with these earnings, which come out after the close tomorrow, Alex. Ron is in Richmond Hill with this question. Go ahead, Ron.
Great program, gentlemen.
Thank
you for it. Mr. Burrows, I have a question on 3D Systems. I'm generally a conservative investor, but I'm looking for something a little bit more aggressive in my portfolio. This stock is down quite a bit from $97. Do you think now would be a good entry point? And can you speak to the industry as well, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
So Ron, clearly 3D printing is in its very early stages, and there's a very large potential market out there for the 3D companies. These companies are going to go through lots of flips and twists along the way, and this is not necessarily for the conservative investor. It's been a very good pullback in the companies in the 3D space. Most of them have pulled back to their 200-day moving averages. If I had to pick one, I probably would pick Strategist as opposed to 3D. They're holding it a little bit better than the rest. We do like industrials as a group. We have been increasing our weight in industrials in general. But just understand this is going to be a higher volatility position, and you have to recognize it. Identify where your stops would be. I wouldn't want to see 3D pull back below the lows it had about a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I'd use a stop there.
Are you in Stratasys?
We own some Stratasys.
Okay, yeah. SSYS, as we saw there. Let's take a break here with David, and we'll get back to your questions right after this.